So the key to kind of last weekend's gospel as well as this weekend's gospel is faith. You recall last weekend, right? We had Jairus, the synagogue official whose daughter had died, and he came to our Lord, and our Lord said, just have faith. And then the hemorrhaging woman who had been hemorrhaging for 12 years, a life filled with immense and chronic pain. And our Lord, after her healing, says, daughter, your faith has saved you. And it was their faith, this depth of faith that they lived out of, through which they could see more than just some miracle worker, right? It was through faith that they could indeed not just see, but encounter the Messiah, the Son of God. That there was more to this man that stood in front of them, more than just miraculous healings, that he was indeed God. And so what they were able to see because of their faith, the people of our Lord's hometown could not see because of their lack of faith. They could not see any more than what was right in front of their faces. All they could see was just one of them. All they could see was someone who, like them, was born into a not very special family, who was raised with similar upbringings to each and every one of them, who wasn't this kind of spectacular person, but bled like they did, sweated like they did, worked like they did. All they saw was just one of them, just another person. Because of their lack of faith. As we know, faith, it's much more than just this kind of intellectual assent, right? It's more than just saying, yeah, I believe in God. Yeah, I believe in Jesus. Yeah, I believe in heaven. It's much more than just this assent. It's much more than just an I believe. It's the prism through which we look. It's the filter through which we not only speak, but hear. It is this great principle by which we live, and it orients our entire life, and it orients us to the world around us. And the Nazarenes, they struggled with just that surface level faith, that intellectual assent. And undoubtedly, they would probably be considered faithful Jews by all outward appearances. They went to the synagogue. That's where they encountered our Lord. They probably did their best to live according to the law of Moses. They probably did their best to live all the customs of their Jewish faith. But to them, it was just an I believe. It was just that intellectual assent. And because of that, they could not see beyond the man who was Jesus of Nazareth. They couldn't see into his humanity and spy his divinity. They couldn't hear the words of anyone else other than just one of them. They couldn't hear the words of God in and through our Lord. And each and every one of us, guys, if we're not careful, we run the risk of living only that kind of surface level, I believe, intellectual assent kind of faith. One of the ways that we can kind of see or test ourselves to understand if our faith is growing deeper, that if we're able to see beyond, if faith is in fact the prism through which we look faith is in fact the filter through which we speak and listen. And the great test is not kind of asking ourselves, like, how do we act and listen and speak to those kind of outside of our common everyday experience in life? But how do we hear those we see every single day? How do we look at those we see every single day? How do we interact with and give to those whom we interact with every single day? Just like the divinity of Jesus Christ that was proclaimed fully through his humanity, so does God work through the very common, the very mundane, the very normal and natural human relationships that surround us. Do we hear the voice of God in our spouses? Are we even listening for the voice of God in our spouses? Do we hear and listen for the voice of God in our children, in our friends, in our co-workers, in the people we see and interact with every single day? We are indeed, as you know, destined for the supernatural. We are indeed destined for heaven, life beyond what is right in front of our face. But heaven is revealed through what is right in front of our face, what is the common, what is the mundane, what is the very natural, what is the very human. How are we hearing? How are we listening to? How are we looking at those who are with us and around us every single day? Are we like the Nazarenes, who can't see or hear anyone or anything beyond what's right in front of our face? Or are we like the synagogue official, Jairus? Are we like the hemorrhaging woman with that deep faith that can see beyond and look through and encounter God himself?